'Cause girls is players too. 'Cause girls is players too. What is up, sapiosexuals? Thank you for turning on Sex in South Beach with America's sex educator. That's me, Dr. Sonjia. So the sex situation we're getting into today is all about non-monogamous women. Yes, you heard right. We're talking about the reality that girls is players too. And to help us untangle this increasingly common sexual situation, we've got the Dragonness, the sultry, sensual seductress, who's not only organic, but also orgasmic. Ooh, I'm so happy you're here, Dragonness. How are you?
So happy to be here, Sonjia. It always makes my day to see you.
Oh, so you and I have talked a lot about women who have multiple sex partners. Now, is it cool? Like, how do you go about establishing this type of relationship? Like, you and I have talked about all the ins and outs. Do you tell the guy you're sleeping with tonight that you might have someone else in your mouth tomorrow? And how do you stay safe and still get what you want out of the relationship? What's your take?
I think you absolutely can. I think you absolutely can be empowered and explore your options and enjoy the abundance of but enjoy the abundance of variety that is at your door and available for you. You absolutely have the right to enjoy your variety.
Absolutely. Every now and again, I have a client who has either gone through a divorce or is widowed, and they tell me something like, it's the only man I've ever been with. And I'm like, oh, do you even like sex? And they're like, I don't know. It was always fine with this person. But after working with this type of a client for a while, it's always interesting for me to witness the transformation as they become introduced to different men and different sexual situations. On occasion, a woman who's only been with one man for like the first 48 years of her life can end up in a situation where she's like, oh my God, I did not know sex could be this good because I just never experienced. I never had the variety. I didn't know when I was married that that was bad sex.
Right.
There's some women who say, their ex-husband or their former partner, their partner who died, thought that they weren't even into sex. And then they're with a different man and they're like, wow, I'm really into sex. I didn't even know you could do these things.
Yeah. It's like any other experience. Sex is just like any other experience. So the more exposure you have and the more experience with different partners safely that you have, the more you'll learn about what you like, about the things that turn you on, just by exploring more and being more exposed to those opportunities.
Absolutely. That reminds me, one time when I was young, I ended up going on a trip to Jamaica by myself because my girlfriend backed out at the last minute. And so the guy who worked at the resort, he spent my entire vacation trying to convince me to sleep with him as a favor for my future husband. He's right. Because when you do find someone you want to settle down with,
right,
you want to be good at sex and you want to be able to please them. And you also want to know how to communicate with them what you like.
Exactly.
So by having sex with me, it's some more experience that's going to help you be better by the time you settle down with someone.
100, exactly.
So I should have had sex with him, huh? Shit.
You didn't?
No. I was in Jamaica alone. I was so scared. It was like, I'm out of the country alone. And it was before.
Man, you got to go back and find out what you missed.
So it's interesting. I was looking up some data to prepare for our chat today. And, 55% of Americans still prefer monogamy. But 55%, you'd like to say like that's the majority, but that's about half, right? Yeah. I mean, so the tides really are changing with
Mhm.
regard to monogamous relationships. So I know you date. So has anyone ever told you, like, come out and said, "Hey, I'm non-monogamous"?
Most of the time. Most of the time, it's that. Most of the time, it's they
Wow.
won't. Yeah, for
So
me.
so it's more, maybe they sense that you are sexually liberated so that you can handle the truth, right? Because
Possibly, maybe, everybody attracts different people, so it could be like what I'm attracting also. But I do meet people that do want monogamy also, so they're definitely out there. I might not always be interested in them for whatever reason. um, at the end of the day, I think that I like to be more of a rebel and say that I want to break the rules and break the books, but it's kind of like so in our DNA as women to want to settle down and have babies and get married. So it's just different times these days. And are you going to sacrifice current opportunity for joy and pleasure just because you can't settle down with a person right now? I personally no. Personally, I want to continue to enjoy the good
right,
opportunities that come, even if they're not like the perfect one at the moment. You can still
right.
enjoy those moments through the process, through your journey, getting to, if that's what you want.
What I hear you saying is you can appreciate intimate pleasure with someone
Mhm.
and really have like a high quality connection and experience, whether or not they are monogamous. So even if they say I'm non-monogamous, don't
Right.
count them out, because there might be like an explosive, really
Exactly.
really exciting intimate situation that you could experience,
Mhm.
but you shut it down before you even get there.
Exactly. I don't know what the statistics are, but I would say like the stereotype is that women won't,
Right.
if they won't feel safe, they won't feel secure. So if you're not feeling safe or secure, that is never going to lead to good sex. And you need to be honest with yourself. Like you should be honest with your, how you're feeling. And if you really aren't okay with your partner seeing other people, ask why. Is it possible to compartmentalize those two desires of pleasure and commitment? Or can you?
Absolutely. Like Mr. Right now might not be your ultimate Mr. Right.
Exactly.
So while you're still exploring, trying to find Mr. Right, you don't necessarily need to slam the door in Mr. Right now's face.
Exactly. You can still, have your cake and eat it too.
Right. And I think that's really an important statement, because there was a study done this year in February 2023 by an organization called YouGov, and they found that over a third of Americans describe their ideal relationship as something other than monogamy. So if we
Mhm.
have a third, over one third of Americans are already saying their ideal relationship is something other than monogamy, then this is a really rapidly increasing situation that we should address. One of our girlfriends is going to go on the third date with someone, and
Mhm.
that's the sex date often. She said the kicker is he's non-monogamous, but
Right.
I don't want to give up the intense intimacy
Right.
and the pleasure-filled connection that we have just because he's non-monogamous. She's like, what else am I doing Saturday night? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
wash my hair?
Why not? Yeah, why not? Why not enjoy the experience? And we are emotional though, and they're valid. Like having that desire of commitment, is a natural thing. You should honor that. If you're not feeling comfortable because you aren't getting a commitment, listen to yourself and keep yourself safe. But I would also challenge yourself too and find out why.
I also think that when we're talking about non-monogamous women, I think it's really important that, you know, women specifically can be very fluid with their sexual behaviors and their sexual norms. So I've known many women who are like, I'm just not having sex right now. I'm going to be celibate while I'm
Yep.
figuring out this situation, or
Mhm.
while I build this company, or
Yep.
while I do enough Kegels to recover from my last boyfriend. You know, so until I tighten up, I can't see anyone. But
Yeah.
um, and then so that same person who could be celibate one year can
Mhm.
be extraordinarily playful and experience a lot of men the next year. And it's just one person. It's just this is where she is right now. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, being open to change your mind. You can make one decision like I'm celibate today, and tomorrow you can wake up and be like, actually, I'm curious about having an orgy, and that's okay. That you need to just be in tune with yourself and know how you're feeling, and do check-ins with yourself, and embrace what you're feeling, and know that it's okay to change your mind also.
Absolutely. And even though, ladies, we're not always able to change men's minds, and I highly discourage women from trying to do that,
Yeah.
because one thing my mother told me when I was very young was that men will tell you what they want you to know.
Mhm.
So if a man says he's non monogamous,
Mhm.
he wants you to know he's non-monogamous. If
Yeah.
he chooses to change down the line because, oh my God, you are just the most amazing thing, and he really wants to focus all of his attention on you, that's one
Mhm.
thing. But that's a decision he's going to make, not a
Right.
decision you're going to make. And the reality is, ladies, most men under 45 years old say their ideal relationship is not completely monogamous.
Mhm.
So when I read that data, and that's from that February 2023 study I was earlier referencing, when I read that data, I thought, there's going to be women who are okay with a man being non monogamous, and then
Mhm.
there's going to be women who men cheat on, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
is
Is
it
it
normal to be
normal?
monogamous? And I mean, there's another train of thought on this. Like I heard someone say, if I was going to die at 50, I could do it, but I'm not. I'm not going to die
Right.
when I'm 50. And
Mhm.
so, and neither is everybody else. There's still going to be a hot person who you run into at a business conference, whether or
Mhm.
not you tell your long-term partner that you're doing it. Some people know they're always going to do it, and then they might not tell their partner that that's the way they work. But what we're talking about today is women who are openly non-monogamous. And when we say openly, like they're not hiding the fact that
Mhm.
they're interested in exploring different men.
Right.
And we all know society is kind of like they look at women differently than men who do the same thing, right?
Mhm.
So about a quarter of Americans, 26% of all Americans, they would be somewhere in the middle, they said, of monogamous and non-monogamous. So I'm not sure what that means. It's somewhere in the middle. It's like I get to cheat once a year. You
Right.
know, I get that. And I've known couples.
Mhm.
This is one thing I love about the LGBTQ plus community is
Mhm.
because they haven't been able to have open out of the closet relationships as long as heterosexual people have. They've had
Mhm.
to come up with their own relationship standards.
Mhm.
And I have met more than one gay couple, and they do have a contract. And the deal is you get 2 passes a year, or
Wow.
you can, if you run into someone or meet someone who you do think that you want to have sex with, then we
Mhm.
can talk about it. I will never stop you as long as we're open and honest about it.
Exactly.
And that we're still in communication, because just because you have sex with someone else, it doesn't mean that your primary relationship is less important. Do you
Mhm.
agree with that?
Totally. Yeah. And that comes to setting boundaries and communicating with your partner. And whatever your comfort level is what you'll agree upon. And that theory worked out for them. You won't really know until you get into those experiences. But yeah, I think setting boundaries with your partner, if you are non-monogamous or if you are monogamous, having those plans in place will help you, because it's inevitable. There's temptation everywhere, there's opportunity everywhere.
Right.
So
You go to a CrossFit class, everyone's sweating and groaning, nobody's wearing clothes. You've been seeing each other at 6 in the morning for 2 years.
yeah,
You know, you're like, fine, legs wide open, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's good.
yeah, having those boundaries are really healthy and important. And I know married couples who are full-blown swingers and they're like the most healthy relationship and they'll be together for life. Just knowing what you're okay with is the start. Knowing what's really what you are okay with. And it's okay if you don't know to also experiment and explore things that maybe you haven't had before, because maybe you'll learn that you are okay with things that maybe you stereotypically thought you weren't okay with.
Absolutely, absolutely. It reminded me of a couple once we all shared an Uber home and with their friend. And so she started making out with this guy who was not her husband in the Uber. And I was completely confused because most people know I'm a sexologist, so they tell me all their business. This couple didn't. They were just like, Sonjia is so cool to hang out with. But I would have appreciated a little like
Yeah.
introduction. So when she's macking down this other guy in the back of the Uber and the husband's just looking out the window, not even looking. And to date, they're still one of the healthiest couples and the happiest couples that I've ever met. They completely adore each other.
Yeah.
So 1 in 8 Americans, that's 12%, that say that they have actually engaged in sexual activity with someone other than their primary partner with their partner's permission. So these contract situations are happening. So I think all of the different types of relationship communities should seriously consider exactly what you said, setting boundaries within an agreement to make sure that everybody is okay. And then again, renewing that agreement like once a year, because people do change.
Right.
You know, what someone wanted one year might not be what they want the next year. And also people become disabled,
Right.
people develop health conditions,
Yeah.
you know, some things can really interfere with someone's sexual functioning. And we, you know, partners also have needs, even though they might not be experiencing the same health issues.
Exactly. Exactly.
We just said 12% of Americans have had sexual relationships outside of their relationship with their partner's permission. More have had sex with someone without their partner's permission. 1 in 5 people in a relationship has basically cheated on their partner and their partner doesn't know. So there is this idea like you may not be monogamous, but I do think it's better for everybody to be on the same page, for the partner.
Totally.
No.
Be honest.
So this is going to be surprising. Almost 70% of Americans said if their partner wanted to engage in sex with someone else, they would not be okay with it at all. Yeah. But then when we look at these divorce rates, like 60% of divorces are happening due to cheating.
Right.
So we really need to think about, is it going to be right? So, and sometimes what I think is a relationship can be so healthy in other ways, like they support each other's career. They have similar, you know, values. They might work out together. They might have a great intellectual connection. Yeah. But, and do you want to throw it all away just because your partner wants to have sex with someone else?
Yeah. Why do we put so much pressure on? I mean, I've done it too. So, you know, it's just, I'm questioning like
what, you cheated?
No. I mean, what, you know, I've wanted to like have somebody be exclusive, you know, that they don't have sex with other people. But why is that? Why do we feel the need to like own somebody's sexuality? Why do we feel as human beings that we need to like own that? If you love a person so much and they're just interested in having sex with other people, like why is that a deal breaker for most of us?
A lot of it is conditioning. I did an episode a while ago about how monks are really the people who started marriage and they attach sex to marriage. So remember, monks have no sexual experience. They've never dated anyone. And yet they decided like in the 1500s, you can only have sex within a marriage and all sex outside of a marriage is sinful. And the other part, a marriage is not legal unless you consummate it. But prior to the monks doing that, marriage was just a business deal.
Right.
And I think maybe it's time to consider alternate forms of marriage other than the ones that the monks have condoned.
My Uber driver lost his mind the other day, but he blamed me. He said I smelled so good he became too excited to drive. This man actually pulled over to get himself together. And he refused to drive until I told him the name of my fragrance. Then he bought 3 bottles before driving again. I know Sen's body oil makes men crazy, but that Uber ride should be free. What's your Sense story?
Sensebodyoil.com. SENSE bodyoil.com.
Okay, now for a little bit of advice. So if someone is going to be non-monogamous, a female, question, should they tell their partner, like, do you tell, Tom tonight, you're on a date with Tom tonight, and tomorrow you're going to be on a date with John. Do we tell Tom that we're going to be on a date with John?
If the subject matter of exclusivity is brought up, then yes, I would be honest, and I wouldn't I would suggest not getting into the heady details. But if you're still just exploring each other and casually dating, there's no reason to bring all of that up. If somebody explicitly asks you, I would say be honest and be authentic and true, but you don't have to overshare. You don't need to overshare. Yeah.
Unless, I would always ask, well, why do you want to know? Would you like to be exclusive with me? Is this
right? That's a good way to, that's a beautiful way to put it.
Nosy, or you want to be exclusive with me? Because my private business is my private business.
Exactly.
Down with my private business for a long time, and we're talking about taking some next steps.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect way to put it.
All right, so guys, I'm here to tell you, Dragonness and I are shouting from the rooftop here. Girls is players too. So you want to be out there. But remember, ladies now have a lot of options. Hopefully this encourages men to be more honest with their female partners, because I think we're also saying that honest communication is better than cheating.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Whenever you lie, you don't feel good anyway. So you might as well just be like, I accept myself.
Yeah.
Normally when you lie, you're not feeling good about yourself. You're lying because you think you're not measuring up. So I think we want to encourage people to be honest, because we all should know what we're getting into, so we can make informed decisions.
Exactly.
All right, now it is time for your climax, where we give you a little something to remember about the non-monogamous ladies.
Quantity over quality. It's not always going to be perfect every time when you're if you really want to explore being a player, or just having multiple partners, if you're monogamous, like from your roots and tradition, and you're trying to expand out, just know it's not always going to be great. Like it's just not always going to be mind-blowing and amazing, and that's okay. And it's about learning the things that you like and the things that you don't like, and that's
Absolutely.
okay.
I always say it's a win or a lesson. And 2,
be protected and be very safe. Don't have unprotected sex.
Don't take chances, especially if you're non-monogamous.
Yeah.
Condom, male or female.
Yeah. And also take a shower with soap after too. Just like we washed our hands like crazy with COVID. The same with sex. Like you should be taking a shower as soon as you finish too. Just like washing your hands. You should also
wash that man away. 3,
know how to set boundaries for yourself and do check-ins with yourself. Either journal or write notes to yourself, track and tabs of how you're feeling, so that you know that you're protecting yourself and others around you too.
4, Dragonness.
Don't ask things that you might not want to know.
I shouldn't ask, like, is she tighter than me?
Exactly. You don't need to ask. Yeah, you don't need to get into those details. And same respect for the other person.
And you can always reframe the conversation. You can always just say, introduce a different topic. In the conversation, and say, hey, I think this relationship is more about you and me.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much, Dragonness, for being with us today. You add so much spice to the show. I love it. I cannot wait to do another show with the Sensual Seductress. Not only organic, she's also orgasmic. For your daily dose of Nookie knowledge, check me out on all the social media networks. That's Dr. Sonjia, DRSONJIA, on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. You want to link up. And if you want to find Dragonness, her IG handle is Enter Dragonness. And if you're lucky, you'll get the opportunity, but there's not that many lucky people. Okay. Don't hold your breath, guys. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning into Sex in South Beach, where everyone comes for happier, healthier sex.